Committee for February 11, 2019. First order of business tonight is approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes or additions to the agenda?
I'll move the agenda, Chair Barber.
Support. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the agenda is approved. Next order of business is approval of the minutes from the January 28th of 2019 meeting. Did anyone have changes or additions?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the minutes are approved. Next, we're on to reports. We've got Metropolitan MTS Director Thompson.
Madam Chair, council members, two updates tonight. Weather continues to impact our service. Shocking, but just thought I'd give you a little update on Metro Mobility Service. How we contract that out is we have in the contract weather delays that are allowed based on weather and conditions, and usually what that means is that the service levels and performance and on-time performance is down. And so far, looking through February 15th in the forecast, 13 or 12 of the 15 days will have been impacted by weather. So we've been continuing to send out notes to customers as much as we can about the impacts and ask them for patience, and then any non-emergency trips that they can cancel or delay, we've asked them to do that. But of course, when you have that many days impacted, it's tough. So they are being good, but that is really having a pretty big impact on Metro Mobility. Also, lastly, on the agenda, isn't on the agenda tonight, is approval of the Riverview TPP amendment. We decided to give it a couple more weeks because we received a lot of comments, and we're preparing the public comment report. And then we've been having a couple meetings with tribal nations, and we have a couple more scheduled, and we thought we'd like to get those in and get their input before we bring that action back to you, but it will be on the February 25th agenda for approval of that at transportation. And so with that, Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks. I'd take any comments or questions.
Any questions for Director Jones? Then we'll move on to General Manager questions.
Members of the committee, Chair, our attention's been grabbed by the weather as well over the last couple of weeks. It seems that we've had a winter's worth of extreme winter conditions, and of course it impacts our employees, it impacts our services, it impacts our riders, and we're trying to do our best to communicate through social media and other means about expectations and changes in schedule and so forth. But I know a lot of people think it's hard to keep up. Some slides here are showing some of our staff who have had to work in those extreme conditions, and that work has been significant. Last Monday, ice-covered lines and tracks led to service delays in the Blue Line. Our light rail vehicles are programmed to turn off when there's interruptions in power supply, and then we have to work to get those started up again and get going. I know one of your constituents had said, I understand why there's delays in weather. I wish they would tell me when it's going to be a long one. And I can tell you, because I was riding Blue Line that day, that each time an eruption occurred, we thought we'd have it fixed in a short time, and then another interruption occurred, and it was a sequence of interruptions, and people kept hearing about short delays, but that was actually the information I was getting live from Vince Pellegrin as they were occurring. So sometimes we can't anticipate the sequence of events that's going to happen in front of us, but we always try to give our riders the right information. And then we've had 8 rail cracks in the past 2 weeks, as you can imagine, with 30 below weather. What that does with steel and stretch of steel, and that's twice as many rail cracks as we get in a normal winter. So these are small cracks that we have to get out and fix. We've had people who've had to spend 6 hours out in that extreme weather working on those things. And they put temporary fixes, and then we try to go back in the when it gets a little bit warmer to execute the permanent fixes. And of course, then we've had snow falling constantly, and it's still falling. Expected again tonight and tomorrow morning. Somebody mentioned to me we've had 18 inches of snow in the last 10 days, with more to come, and that also has created service delays. this impacts our riders. We know that. We are trying to do the best we can, and we have people again working in these conditions. We heard reports of managers picking up operators at their homes when their vehicles wouldn't start. We have operators have been committed for looking out for their passengers. The police have been involved in increased efforts to ensure everyone has a safe place to stay. Everybody is working hard through these weather events. So if you see a rail maintenance person or a bus maintenance person or an operator, facilities maintenance or police, thank them. And because they would be great to hear recognition of the work that they're doing, because as you can imagine, we're hearing the concerns, and we're taking those concerns seriously, and they also need to hear the support for the work they're trying to do to keep up. The only other item I would mention is that we've been working hard over the last couple of weeks in anticipation of the governor's budget proposal. I think that's due to be released on the 19th, and we're excited to see that come out, and we believe based upon the work we've been doing, it'll be a robust plan and one that will excite people and make people feel good about the direction of transit in the future. So we're very hopeful, and we're looking forward to the release on the 19th. That'd be all I have.
Councilmember Dorfman.
Madam Chair, Wes, when there's a crack in the rail, how is that discovered?
Sometimes I believe it's discovered by an interruption in electrical current. Sometimes it's done by it's discovered by people walking the tracks. Initially, the ones sometimes they're just like a quarter-inch crack, and sometimes larger. But my understanding is that once they're discovered, we put sleeves over them. Sometimes we can run the rails on them for some moment of time during rush hour, and then go back and put sleeves, because they're not dangerous on an immediate basis, but sleeves will help it prevent it from cracking more. So it's both Transit Control Center gets signals that there's an issue, and then there's physical inspection, on-site inspection.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the general manager? All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, with that, we'll move on to our business tonight. There are no items on the consent agenda, so we can move to the non-consent agenda. Our first item is Metromobility Sedan replacement. It's business item number 2019-40, and we have Paul Coulter.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. This afternoon I have for you a recommendation to replace our Metromobility SUV fleet. The proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to execute a purchase agreement with Midway Ford using State of Minnesota Contract 134736 for up to 24 replacement sport utility vehicles in an amount not to exceed $750,000. These vehicles of this type have allowed Metromobility to transport passengers who have been identified with severe pain, either fibromyalgia or some other similar disability, to be able to provide them with a more comfortable ride than we're able to do with our current fleet of buses. Several other benefits of using SUVs provides us with greater flexibility for passenger pickup. Because they're a little bit smaller, they can get to locations sometimes where our buses can't. And then we always get the all-wheel drive capability, because sometimes you run into weather like this. And it's been really helpful on those snow days to try to help us keep service going and without getting stuck and that sort of thing. So we've been using these vehicles, a sedan type, SUV type of vehicle for about 13 years. And like I said, it's been very helpful. And our criteria for selecting this, because of the uniqueness of the vehicle, is as follows. The top priority is passenger accessibility and comfort. That's obviously why we're using it. So that's the key in getting feedback on that. The second is, drivers need to be comfortable. It needs to have a good layout in terms of the dash and so forth for them while they're operating the vehicle. And then we look for vehicles that are easier rather than challenging to install all of our technology on them. So that's also taken into consideration. And then cargo space availability to be able to transport walkers and other types of light mobility devices, and groceries and other things that our passengers might have. And then finally, we are also trying to balance that with fuel economy and cost. So try to put that all in the hopper and come up with the right vehicle. So the good news is we go through this type of fleet fairly quickly. They've got a 3-year useful life. We try to run them about 175,000 to 200,000 miles, and then replace them so we have a good reliable fleet. And so as we move down the road, we continue to explore options where we can take advantage of electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles that also fit the needs of our passengers. And we're very hopeful that that is coming fairly soon. There's a couple of models that are coming out with new hybrid versions that are a little bit larger vehicle. So, and hopefully the price comes down. With that, I'd be glad to entertain any questions that you have.
Any questions for the presenter?
I do that. I move approval.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? And the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't know how I did that.
On to our next order of business is
Yeah.
item 2019-24 regarding public hearing on proposed elimination of Route 614. We have Steve Hallwell.
No idea how I did that.
Chair, members of the committee, my name's Steve Mahold. I'm in the Service Development Division of Metro Transit. The requested action that we're bringing before you tonight is to authorize a public hearing for the proposed elimination of Route 614. 614 is service that operates in Minnetonka between Minnetonka Heights, which is in the southwest corner of the city, and Ridgedale. It was implemented in 2013 as a demonstration of regular route service in Transit Market Area 4 and 3. The map here, that's Minnetonka outlined there in the green, and you'll notice the shading here, the darker green in Minnetonka is compared to the lighter green. The darker green is Market Area 3, which will support express route service plus some limited local route service. The light green area, Market Area 4, typically is just express service. Well, it has the demographics to support express service if you have sufficient concentration of riders. There's 18 routes providing 400 transit trips per weekday to Minnetonka, serving 2,200 passenger trips. In terms of route, let's focus on Route 614 in the light blue here. As I noted, it starts down in the southwest corner of the city and it serves Minnetonka Heights, which is a concentration of affordable housing. One of the other concentrations of activities along the route is the Seven High Shopping Center, where you have a Super Target and a Cub grocery store. And there's a number of the trips that are being made on this route. A number of them are being made between Minnetonka Heights and that Seven High complex. And then in the northeast corner of the city, you have Ridgedale, and that's the northeast terminal of the route. Marketing of this service included distribution of free ride coupons. We did have Saturday service when we started it back in 2013. That was discontinued in 2015 due to low ridership. The regional standards for a route of this type, a suburban local service, is 10 passengers per in-service hour. The route has consistently averaged below 5 passengers per in-service hour, and of the routes that the council operates, it has the highest subsidy per passenger of over $23. If eliminated, transit link service, our kind of dial ride type service the council provides and is provided in Minnetonka, would be available from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And this is a chart showing the passengers per in-service hour. On the right-hand side, you have the number of passengers per in-service hour. On the bottom there, that's an average by pick, our driver picks from when it started in 2013 through fall of 2018. The next steps, and I should mention that we have been in discussion with Minnetonka staff regarding the productivity of the route and our proposed action. This was an informational item in front of the Minnetonka City Council 2 weeks ago. Next steps, if we were given approval go ahead with the public hearing, our proposed dates are Monday, April 15th at the Ridgedale Library from 11:30 to 1. Comment period would end on the 25th of April. And then if we move ahead after that with the proposed elimination, we would come back, we're targeting coming back to the Transportation Committee here on May 13th. And if approved for elimination, the last day of service would be Friday, August 16th. And again, the requested action is that the committee the council authorized a public hearing to accept comments on the proposed elimination of Route 614. And with that, I'd be glad to take any questions you may have.
Councilmember Munn.
Madam Chair, Route 614 serves Minnetonka, which is in my district, and I want to thank Steve for the great work that you do in collaboration with the city of Minnetonka. Minnetonka has chosen to use Metro Transit rather than opting out of our system. And we've tried everything we could do to keep this route alive. Since I came on board with the council early on, we've been trying to save this route. The city has done extraordinary work, including this in their newsletters. We've done the free ride coupons for the folks at Minnetonka Heights. One of the lessons that I've learned is when you've got a city like this and your affordable housing is here and all of the density is over here, it makes it really hard to get the 10 or more rides per service hour that we're talking about. So I am in support of this. I think that a warmer weather open house during the lunchtime hour is the best way to get the people most affected by this change to the table. And if we do end up looking to Transit Link, it doesn't mean that we're leaving people without the transportation that they need. So,
Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Dorfman.
So, Steve, we talked earlier today, so thank you. So this area, the Minnetonka Heights area, how close is it to the nearest proposed Southwest Light Rail station?
Chair, Councilmember Dorfman, members of the committee, and the question was, how close is this to the Southwest LRT station?
Yeah.
That would be, I'm guessing, about 3 or 4 miles. And I should mention that this is not our first attempt to provide service to Minnetonka Heights, which was formerly known as Archer Heights. We've had 2 other occasions. In 1980, we instituted a point deviation service where you had fixed time points, and you could, and between them you had operated like dial-a-ride. That did serve Minnetonka Heights, Archer Heights, with a time point, and that lasted about 2 years. And then we came back in 2001, I believe, with Route 612, which ran in between Minnetonka Heights, served 7 High, and then went Excelsior Boulevard. And I don't know if I have a laser pointer here. Oops, not the way to go. Okay. Ran Excelsior Boulevard through the Glen Lake area, and the city of Minnetonka has been intensifying that node. And I got to say, the city of Minnetonka has been great in terms of their focus on intensification at nodes, and also their focus on improving the pedestrian environment. And that Glen Lake area is one area where they're taking those actions. And then it ran in the 612 ran in Excelsior Boulevard to downtown Hopkins. And our station, our closest station, I'm guessing that's probably 4 miles. We'll be at the Shady Oak station there, and then the downtown Hopkins station.
So, I mean, in the future, connecting that community with Southwest makes sense to look at that.
It's in terms of our opening day service plan, what we have on paper right now, and which of course we have to bring out for public comment, that service is not in place. But in terms of the 2035 build plan, which we've submitted to the FTA, a route such as that between Minnetonka Heights connecting 7 High into the Hopkins station is, that's one of our conceptual routes in the 2035 build plan.
Thanks. 2035.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we are on to business item, which 2019-36, which is a same week item. It's Metro Transit Haywood Office and Police Facility Furniture Request. And we have Robert Rimstead and Molly Ellis. Welcome.
Thank you. Chair and council members, I am again Robert Rimstead with Metro Transit Engineering Facilities. I'm here to introduce Molly Ellis. She's the project manager that started with us in June of last year and took on the construction of the ongoing police building project. And so you may remember her. She gave the tour to the council members at the December meeting and walked everyone through the facility. And this spring, she's going to be busy kind of coordinating the move-in activities to keep everything moving along. And so here she is to present the business item for the furniture purchase.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. My name is Molly Ellis, Senior Project Manager in Engineering Facilities at the Haywood Office Building. This business item is to propose authorization by the Regional Administrator to execute a contract for the procurement of facility furniture for the Metro Transit Haywood Office and Police Facility for an amount not to exceed $1,176,000. The council has previously authorized the construction of a 60,000 square foot addition to the Haywood Office Building. The facility is nearing completion with an anticipated opening in May 2019. New furniture is necessary for the transit office and police building for maximum space utilization and is included in the project budget. The construction contract does not include the building furniture and therefore a separate procurement is needed. This procurement would include 162 workstations, 14 conference and meeting rooms, 3 public lobbies, and 1 lunchroom. This action promotes equity by serving as an anchor to the community for community policing and a host site for community meetings. The funding is available for this contract in project 63219. Due to timing, we're requesting a same week item for this, and I can open for questions.
Are there any questions for the presenter?
Move
None?
adoption, Madam Chair.
Is there a second? All those in favor, or is there any other discussion? Councilmember Munn.
Madam Chair, I'm supportive of this because I'm supportive of community policing and I'm supportive of welcoming the community into our police facility. So that's why we need more furniture than we would if it was just for our staff.
Okay, good. So we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to our next business item, which is item 2019-38. It's Orange Line Engineering Service Contract Amendment, and we have Jim Hartwood.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm Jim Harwood with Metro Transit Engineering Facilities Department. I have 2 Orange Line business items here in a row today, the first of which is requesting that the council authorize the regional administrator to execute Amendment 2 to a contract with HNTB in the amount of $531,082 for engineering services associated with the Orange Line project. That would bring the cumulative contract value to just over $8.2 million. We originally executed this contract in early 2016 in the amount of just over $6.7 million for the engineering services through design and construction of the project. We amended that actually in the spring of last year. I was before this committee requesting additional funds for coordination with some of our agency partners, MnDOT and others, and some additional design required to work with other projects that the region had. Now that the FTA has announced funding, the remaining funding of the Small Starts Grant Agreement, and we have some more certainty in our schedule of delivery, we need to amend this contract again. When we originally scoped this project in 2015, we assumed the construction would last about 2 years. It would be handled through one council-held contract, through working with our partners, through approvals, and again, looking at schedules through design. We now know that we'll be bidding this contract in bidding this in March. starting construction in summer, and that construction will actually continue to 2022. And we also know that we'll be having 2 separate council-held contracts in lieu of one, which allows for best path for project delivery, though it does require some additional engineering services. We also are requesting that they provide some additional services for managing our integrated master project schedule, some additional renderings to help with community engagement, and also some additional support for our condemnation process that we're currently in for land acquisition. And all of those, again, require council approval of this amendment. We do have funding available in our project to move forward with this. So with that, I will entertain any questions on this item.
For the next one too.
Thank you very much. I'm going to let council members take a quick minute. We had some tech challenges, so if they were following along, and they're getting hard copies of everything right now. So now that you have this in front of you, does anyone have any questions for the presenter? Councilmember Dorfman.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one. All right, and welcome again. So this is for the Orange Line BRT Knox Avenue Transitway Cooperative Construction Agreement. Welcome.
Okay, so this, Madam Chair and council members, this action is requesting authorization of the regional administrator to negotiate and execute a cooperative construction agreement with MnDOT for the construction of one of the 2 contracts I was just referring to, which is construction of the Knox Avenue Underpass at 494, under 494, just west of the 35W 494 interchange. This agreement does a couple of things. It gives us our approvals from MnDOT to complete the work within their right-of-way. The majority of this work is obviously within 494 right-of-way, right next to one of the biggest interchanges in the state. But it also allows MnDOT to serve, to work in a capacity of construction administration, oversight, construction inspections for all the work that's happening along 494 through there. That agreement will negotiate a fee, which is typically 8%. As mentioned here, we're estimating our current budget at $20.7 million, which would be $1.656 million. That percentage would be, though that percentage will be applied to actual incurred construction costs for the project. In terms of the funding of this item, there is funding in the project, though we anticipate this agreement will not be executed until after execution of the Small Starts Grant Agreement, and those federal funds would be utilized for all payments associated with this additional MnDOT work. And with that, I will take any questions on this item.
Any questions for our presenter? Not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Motion second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and motion passes. Thank you very much. So for items moving on to consent, I would say that items 1 and 2 and 4 potentially on consent. 3 is the same week item, and this last one I think was probably one that would go in front of the full council. Any thoughts? Okay. All right. So these 2. Yep. Yep. Exactly. Jennifer and Karen. All right. Now we're on to information items for the evening. First one is 2018 Ridership Report, and we have John Harper.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. When you said you had a technology issue, I thought maybe this presentation wasn't available. And I thought it doesn't make for much of an item without this presentation. But here we go. So let me talk first, before I move into the presentation itself, just structurally about the presentation. Every quarter I bring to you the council's ridership for the year to date. Now that we're at the end of 2018, or into early 2019, I'm bringing to you the annual ridership for 2018. And so this falls really into 3 pieces. First, I'll talk to you about the council's ridership, and then I will add on to that the other regional providers, both to show a regional total, and we will show those providers' ridership individually. And then at the end, there is a slide with some conclusions or some, well, I'll just call it conclusions that we can make based on the slides here. So I'll start first by showing you the 2018 ridership monthly totals as compared to 2017. The 2018 is the red line, and you can see that it does track fairly closely with the 2017 ridership, and down, I think, just slightly here. So the workhorse of our ridership, as is usual, is the blue section here, which is our local service. The blue section, you'll note, is a little bit shorter in 2018 than in 2017, and you'll see by how much on the next slide. But that local ridership is still the key to our region's ridership. And the rail ridership in yellow, the light rail ridership in yellow, that slice is growing a little bit, as I said, as you'll see in the next slides that I show you. So this breaks down ridership for the council by mode and type of service, and I want to make a couple of comments here. First, I want to bring to your attention a national trend that ridership nationally is down about 3%, and that is primarily due to decreases in bus ridership. So what we see here is trends with that trend. We also had a fare increase that occurred in October of 2017, and so this 18 to 17 comparison is going to show a post-fare increase to a pre-fare increase for the most part. And so some of the changes you see here are reflective of that fare increase as well. So,
Councilmember Latowski.
Thank you. John, could you remind us what we anticipated the decrease in ridership would be from that fare increase?
Madam Chair and committee member, I'm not able to. I'm not certain that it's.
The estimated decrease was 4.5%, in the neighborhood of 4.5% immediately, and it was to rebound over 2 years. When I asked about this, where we should be at today is about a 2.5% ridership reduction as a result, because we should be in the rebound period right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're good.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Questra. So as we see the bus modes here, the local and the express modes of the bus service we have are down, and talk about that in the conclusion slides, but that does trend with the fare increase expectations and what we're seeing. There are a number of factors that contributed to that. I'll mention that fuel price is one of the items related to that, and as mentioned here, the fare increase. But as you see, there are some bright spots as well. The A-line BRT is up 2.4%. You'll see here that 1% is the number, because this number here includes the red line and the A line. And so the A line along Snelling Avenue is up 2.4%, and the ridership in that corridor is up considerably when you factor in the A line ridership and the Route 84, which was the existing service in that corridor. And so that has been a success story for us over the past few years. The green and blue lines are both up approximately 5% in 2018 over 2017. And both of those have record level ridership for the councils. And the North Star ridership is down just slightly, just 1% down. That is with the fare increase and from a record high in 2017. And so that, although it's down just slightly, is really a good news story for us that we have retained that ridership. I'll mention Metro Mobility here as well. That Metro Mobility is up 6%, and we continue to see that grow, as we've talked about a number of different times. Even though the fare increase, Metro Mobility continues to grow. The Transit Link, we nearly doubled the Transit Link fare to make it match Metro Mobility's fare, and you can see the reduction that has taken place in that service, and that was anticipated. And the van pool, being a small program, we are down some, but that in my understanding is due primarily to the fuel prices being low. When we see a spike in fuel, that's when people are really driven to enter into van pools. Grouping into 5 or more with a fixed group of people and a fixed commute time really is driven by high fuel prices. So this is our ridership. This next set of slides, as I mentioned, adds in the other regional providers into our ridership to give a regional total. Because the council's ridership, the council's service is the vast majority of the region's service, these numbers really track along what you've just seen. But I will show them to you, and work through them. And the next slide I'll show you will be provider by provider numbers, but just to see here that the local ridership, the express ridership, are down when you add in everybody, down 3%, down 6%. And so this really tracks with the last series of slides I showed. So this does show the regional providers individually, and Plymouth has grown slightly, but otherwise the regional providers are flat or down just a little bit. And so they are feeling that decrease. They're primarily express service, and so they're seeing that decrease in their express ridership as well as we are. The U of M is up 4%, and I understand that the reason for that is that that more units are being built near the U of M campus, and so people are using the U's shuttle service, oftentimes transferring from our service from the neighborhoods near the U onto the U service because they are immediately adjacent to the campus. And so I understand routes like our Route 3 and our Blue Line are seeing some of that transition, off of our service and onto the U of M service immediately adjacent to campus. So that is why their ridership is up. Some of the key observations, as I've talked about a number of times in the presentation here, the fare increase, low car travel costs, primarily the cost of fuel being down, are really the challenges that we see both in the local bus service and in the express service. The opportunities we have, or the successes, as we might say, are that we have seen where we've added fast frequent service, that has gone up, and we've also seen in our express environment where there's been construction and we have provided transit service in and around that construction area, primarily 35W south of downtown. We have retained ridership where across the rest of the system we've seen reductions in ridership. So there is some success there. Obviously, where there is congestion, people are moving to our service, and that is not unusual. In the rail modes, we've talked about the rail modes being up or even, and so that's a success for us. Our Metromobility service, those increases are well known and mirror the area's changing demographics. And with TransitLink, the fare increase of nearly doubling the fare to match the Metromobility fare has impacted that ridership in 2018. So that concludes my presentation, and I can hope to answer any questions that you have, potentially.
Councilmember Dorfman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one I can't recall. Do these ridership numbers take into consideration special events like Super Bowl, State Fair, things like that?
Madam Chair and committee members, yes, these rides, this presentation includes all the rides that all the providers have done across the year, including special events and other ridership.
Other questions for
Madam Chair, members, if you look at these ridership numbers and you think about the future too, a couple big changes that you'll see is we're proposing to invest in ABRT, and those ABRT lines are along local bus routes, and so we'll expect some local bus ridership decline as we switch that ridership over to ABRT. So it's always good to think where our investments line up, and then obviously with our rail investments in the future, we're going to see some big increase in the LRT in the future. And Metro Mobility, in addition to our normal growth, there's bills to expand our service area. And of course, there'll be more demand in those areas we expand to. So areas will grow in those areas too. So if you think about this in context of the future, anticipate some other changes.
And Gentleman Vice Chair, you comment as well?
I just want to mention on a similar point, one of the issues at a high level that we've been dealing with that affect ridership is we normally go through a quarterly process of evaluating, as you're aware of, the routes. That's why we're going through the hearing process on 614, and we reduce routes that aren't performing, or we eliminate routes in some cases, and then we reinvest in routes where they show greater promise or greater demand. And we've been doing more reducing and less investment because we've been facing significant deficits, and it's not responsible to invest in services that we can't support over the long term, and so we've done more harvesting, and we haven't been doing the reinvesting in the process. The larger point here is that where we've proven that we can invest, like in A-Line or in LRT, and we've proven we can invest in quality services, ridership comes. There's over 30% increase in the A-Line corridor as a result of that. And so if we want ridership growth, we have to have investment in the system. Ridership will follow investment. So to me, I think a lot of what we're facing here is an artifact of a budget issue that we have to deal with, a financing issue of our system. And I would add that bus suffers the most from that, because the hierarchy of financing is that state law requires the state to pay 50% of light rail. Federal law requires us to provide ADA services, and they should. And so when you have appropriations in a large basket for transit, bus is the last to get funded, and that's the other issue that I think faces bus as a particular challenge.
Councilmember Muntz?
Madam Chair, Nick, we saw that Metro Mobility ridership is up 6%, and that seems pretty consistent. What is our Metro Mobility deficit right now?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Munt, we're projecting in this biennium the deficit $36.5 million for the Metro Mobility share of the deficit, and then growing from there without any change.
Councilmember Munt?
Madam Chair, so consistent with what Wes was saying, we can't deny ADA service. So if that continues to grow, it will force us to cannibalize our bus system. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Munt, that is correct, and that's, I think, one of the issues that we're trying to deal with as we look at legislation about how we might fund Metro Mobility under separate funding streams so that that doesn't occur.
Councilmember Latofsky?
Thank you. I just want to call out the Route 2 improvements that are happening. Obviously, with more resources, we can do more and we can invest in those lines, but there's some exciting things that we can do within the existing budget in terms of consolidating stops, investing in speed and reliability improvements. So I would invite everybody to take Route 2 through the 8th District and come see some of those improvements.
Councilmember Dorfman?
I just want a second discussion on Metro Mobility. I think that's moving forward. That's one of the biggest challenges. We're going to see continued increase, particularly with the increased number of baby boomers getting older and needing Metro Mobility kind of services. And it can't be, we need to come up with something that's sustainable for that service, and it can't be to the detriment of the rest of our transit system.
Just a comment on that. That's having chaired the Metro Mobility Task Force, I could not agree more. It's really a significant thing, and I think that we're looking at some creative solutions, and hopefully we get some help this time. So, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Harper.
Thank you.
All right, next we are on to Route 5 Transit Single Priority Project Update, yes. And we have Gary Nyberg.
So Madam Chair and council members, good afternoon. My name is Gary Nyberg. I'm the manager of technology systems for bus operations. So I'm here today to give you a little update on the Route 5 Transit Signal Priority Project. Okay. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Oops. So first of all, a little refresher. So what is transit signal priority? So it's a strategy where buses request priority treatment for swifter movement through signalized intersections. And what it is not is it's not signal preemption. So that's what you would get if you're an emergency vehicle. So the buses just simply request priority treatment at the intersections, and it's really the traffic control at the intersection really controls if whether or not we are actually granted signal priority. So on this particular slide, it kind of shows you the red circle indicates where there is it's the receiving antenna for the transit signal priority. So this actually links to the controlling device at the intersection. So it just shows you how we're communicating actually to that particular intersection. So as it relates to Route 5, the implementation of this route, so it is within the city of Minneapolis, and it's really divided into two sections. So we have kind of a north corridor of this project and a south corridor of this project, which is from Emerson and Fremont on the north end in that corridor, and along Chicago Avenue in the south side of the city. So this one, it's actually 31 intersections that are involved in this particular project. So just a little reminder, because of downtown area, because of all the traffic and the congestion in downtown area, this project is not including any of the downtown intersections at this time. So one of the reasons why Route 5 was chosen for this, there was a study a few years ago. So Route 5 was chosen because it's a long route, very busy, high frequency route, high ridership, on-time performance challenges, and has a high amount of service variability. So the current status of this particular project is so the TSP is actually installed and active on all of the intersections except two, where the city of Minneapolis is still doing a little bit of troubleshooting at those intersections, and that's at Chicago and 35th and 38th Street. And we expect that actually to be completed very soon, within maybe next week or so. So we do expect that this project is going to wrap up completely in May. There's an evaluation period here coming up in that April and May period. So again, on the photos that are depicted here, kind of shows you a little closer up look at an intersection, the control arm or the mast arm for the signal actually shows the antenna there, and a little far away view of a bus actually passing through the intersection, and the red circle again indicates where the receiving antenna is for this particular system. So what's next for TSP? Well, TSP is planned to be installed on all of the rapid bus projects, and you see a list indicated there, as you're probably well aware of, those upcoming. So it is a strategy that's being planned to expand upon into the future. Also, local routes, Route 2 and 54, are currently being reviewed and for planned TSP installation in 2019 and into 2020. Plus, there's other local routes being considered for TSP2 installation over the course of the next several years, and you see three of those indicated on the slide there, the 3, 21, and 63. So basically, that's my presentation, the quick little update. So if you have any questions, I'm available to answer them for you.
Councilmember Latowski.
Thank you. So the Route 2, right? This is one of the improvements that's going to make that faster. But my question for you, Gary, is do we know how much time will be saved with this on the Route 5 if you were to go all the way from the top to the bottom?
Well, Madam Chair and Council Member, there was And some estimates and modeling earlier on before this is the estimated to be between 2 to 6 minutes. And because we have just kind of completed the installation of this here just in late December and earlier in January, so we're not quite ready to kind of we have enough buses yet to get some history and to collect some data. So at the present time, we don't really have that good before and after evaluation, but that is part of the next phase of this project. So we don't have that quite yet.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dorfman.
Quick question. Where's 54? What route is that?
Route 54, that's the one that goes from Maplewood Mall through downtown and then out to the airport.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
A very busy bus route that
Yeah.
will benefit greatly from the Councilmember Lukowski.
I had the same question for the 63. Which is that Dale?
63, that's Grand Avenue and East 7th Street. There we go. So.
Councilmember Runt.
Madam Chair, Gary, I'm curious what kind of permissions are needed in order to do signal preemption?
Permissions, like from the
Do you need the city to say, yeah, we want to do this? Do you work with Public Works? Do you work with MnDOT, the county? I'm just curious who we need to partner with in order to do signal preemption.
Sure. So, Madam Chair and council members, so these really are collaborative projects. So this involves early on planning and coordination, communication with the jurisdictions involved. So, so we are a partner in these projects. So it takes early communication and with, in this case, the city of Minneapolis with the Route 5, and so they've helped a lot, so they really are directly involved in this, and we coordinated with them on the actual installation of some of the electronics and connections of the hardware within traffic controllers, and we need their permission. It's really their boxes where we put our technology in, and we need their coordination and participation in order to make that work. And that's kind of a common theme when we do the installations across the region. It really is in partnership with the local jurisdictions and in some cases county and state, depending on the locations.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Nyberg.
Okay, thank you.
Our last information item tonight is the Final Four service plan, and we have Dave and Antoinette Brisson.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. My name is David Hanson, Assistant Director, Field Operations, and I'm really excited to introduce to you Antoinette Brisson, who is our newest addition to Street Operations as our Manager of Street Operations. So we're here to give you an overview of the Final Four, another new exciting event that's coming to Minneapolis here. And so if we take a look at that slide, it gives us a brief overview of the events. Our fun begins on Thursday, April 4th. That's when our coaches come to town for their national convention. That will be hosted at the Convention Center. That runs through Monday the 8th. We have an open practice and all-star game at the U.S. Bank Stadium on the 5th, which is Friday, of course. We have a fan festival, nothing like what we had for the Super Bowl, but there will be a fan festival that will be held at the Convention Center. And that will run from Friday the 5th through Monday, along with a March Madness music series. And so the venue for that, the acts have not been named yet, but that'll be hosted at the Minneapolis Armory off of 6th Street there. Of course, we have our final, our semifinal games at the U.S. Bank Stadium, which is April 6th, which is Saturday. And then on Sunday, if you have nothing to do, come on downtown. They're going to have a kids dribble event around the convention center. And all participants there will receive a basketball and a t-shirt. So it's looking for some fun, exciting times there. And then, of course, Monday, April 8th will be the big day for us, and that'll be the championship game. And that will be tip-off right after rush hour on Monday. So it'll be a very busy Monday afternoon.
With operations for the Final Four, with Nicollet Mall being activated, it will create a situation where we will detour our routes from Nicollet to Hennepin Avenue, where we'll be traveling Washington to 12th. It is going to resemble regular service for, it will resemble regular service We will not do any special or charter services. We will have standby buses in case there is a need for any type of LRT disruptions or to help with congestion as necessary. The 35W to Fifth Avenue will remain open to via Highway 65, and there will not be access to southbound 35W for general traffic. As it relates to LRT services, this is going to operate as it would post Vikings game. There will be no security closures to public access around the US Bank Stadium, and passengers that will be attending the event will, if they are traveling southbound, they're going to exit the train at the government station where there will be a security screening in Commons Park. If they are traveling northbound, they'll be able to exit at the US Bank Stadium. There will be rail operations personnel in the Joint Operations Command Center, along with transit police during games. And our North Star is going to offer additional service. As a correction to the slide, they will have additional service on Friday, Saturday, and Monday nights. As it relates to Metro Mobility customers, there'll be minimum impact to those customers. Metro Mobility staffing is going to be continued assessed just to make sure that we're keeping efficient with the need for the customers, as well as them placing out maps, which will clearly identify outdoor stops, which basically are stops near event locations.
So our Metro Transit Police Department, of course, will be staffing the MAC, which of course is a multi-agency command center, as well as the Joint Operations Command Center. And they'll be staffed there with our other transportation partners. They'll of course have additional event staffing, and they'll have operations that are very similar to what we experience now with post-US Bank Stadium Vikings games. And of course, they'll have additional police officers for any anticipated increase in calls that such an event might attract. As far as our marketing goes, we will have our additional communications folks that will be staffed depending upon the need at the command centers as well, or at our control centers or out in the field as needed. MetroTransit.org will feature our customized web pages and links along with transit apps and mobile ticketing for trip planning, detours, maps, as well as critical visitor information so as to avoid the lines at TBMs. There is no specific app or tickets for Final Four. They'll just activate their regular day passes and or single ride tickets that can be purchased and activated as needed. As far as outreach, they've done a good job in reaching out to the hotels that will be hosting the NCAA folks at Bloomington, U of M, and of course in the Minneapolis area as well. And they've been working with the local organization committee to provide transport options for the approximately 2,600 estimated volunteers. They have also provided 5,000 go-to cards for the coaches, along with NCAA VIPs employees, and directing them to the app in the cloud for ticketing and transit information, as well as they have teams working with and evaluating to reduce impacts on our regular customers. Marketing has also done an awareness campaign to promote Metro Transit to visitors and residents, and that included transit asset wraps such as train wraps, bus sides, kiosk posters, and similar other digital modes of advertisement. And once the Final Four schools have been decided, they'll do some targeting market advertising to those guests and customers. And of course, our employee ambassadors will have them staffed similar to what we did at the Super Bowl at these key locations along the way between downtown and the Mall of America to assist with ticket information and just how to get around Minneapolis on our public transportation. And with that, I'll wait for questions.
Councilmember Dorfman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So obviously this is a much smaller operation than the Super Bowl, but during the Super Bowl there was a fair amount of pre-planning between Metro Transit Police, and homeless assistance agencies and service agencies to make sure that people who are homeless, who are using transit, in fact, we even had to move one of the shelters because it was its proximity to US Bank Stadium. I'm assuming that sort of effort, I mean, that's not part of anything you've outlined today. So I'm curious if there needs to be some focus on that, or if just the magnitude of this just doesn't warrant it.
Madam Chair, committee members, yes, that's part of the answer is that the magnitude of this event is not as interruptive to the community as the Super Bowl was, and so this is going to be a much smaller venue. Really, the activity doesn't start until Thursday, but that consideration is something that we do address and talk about. But as far as specific plans for the homeless, I am not aware of them at this time. But
So,
definitely
so
something.
the one thing that we did for the Super Bowl that was really helpful and may not be warranted, but was to have a flyer so people knew that they could still access services, they could still access shelter, that they still could ride the trains all night if that's what they were doing, and that this wasn't going to impact. They were not somehow going to be targeted or kicked off any of the buses or trains. And that flyer that was distributed to the different shelters and different, was at the libraries and in various government offices to make sure that people knew that their lives weren't going to be impacted by the event. And again, it may not be warranted, but it might be worthwhile just to touch base with some of the nonprofit organizations in Minneapolis in particular, just to
So, Madam Chair and committee members, I think that's an excellent opportunity for us to do so, to re-engage that community. And I think that is an item that we will take back and make sure that it is not being overlooked. But again, I think going into the Final Four as compared to the Super Bowl, the footprint is so much smaller, the venues are smaller, it's such a smaller period of time. But at the same token, I don't think that's an opportunity that we should overlook. So we will take that back and make sure that we are properly addressing that.
Thanks. And if you decide that it's important to do that, I think probably the best contact is calling the Office to End Homelessness at Hennepin County, which is a city-county office headed up by David Hewitt, and just to touch base with them.
Any other questions? Councilmember Munt.
Madam Chair, David and Antoinette, thanks for the presentation. I am thrilled that transit puts us on the map for things like the Super Bowl and the Final Four. But I also want to make sure that our regular customers who are trying to get to work and to school and to medical appointments don't feel like they're less of a priority to us. I know there was a perception, different from reality, that our customers weren't as important to us as the Super Bowl. I want to make sure that our regular route customers, that any inconvenience they suffer is reduced as much as possible, and that we're savvy about the PR that it requires to make sure they feel that way.
Madam Chair, committee members, we share that same importance of that for our regular customers as well. And I think that's demonstrated by the teams that we've had working and doing some outreach, reaching out to making sure that as we deliver this service that we continually reevaluate it. We'll have extra 98s on staff, on hold, available to help any routes that may not be performing proficiently and or are experiencing overloads, to make sure that that regular customer is as minimally impacted as we can possibly do for them.
Councilmember Munt.
Madam Chair, more specifically, one of the areas that we were really concerned about during the Super Bowl was access to Hennepin County Medical Center for the employees as well as for the patients. I hope that we're able to provide convenient access during the Final Four.
Madam Chair, committee member, it's unfortunate that it did not have a slide of the perimeter. Again, that's a much smaller footprint. For example, during the Super Bowl, 6th Street was actually part of the perimeter of the Super Bowl. The fence will be to the north or west, however I want to look at, to the left side of 6th Street on the curb. 6th Street is not impacted at all as part of the perimeter of the stadium. Actually, the only streets that are impacted are 4th Street and 11th Avenue and a little bit of 5th on the north end. But other than that, the hospital is out of the footprint, and those considerations have been made and have been ensured.
Councilmember Munt.
Final question, and this may be a question for Wes. I'm curious whether we look at this as a money maker or a money loser. I know it's hard to say at this point, but I remember Brian Lamb telling us that the Super Bowl netted $114,000 of profit. So is this a moneymaker or money loser?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Mudd, I'm not sure what the estimate is on that, but I do know that what's been emphasized to me is that this isn't the Super Bowl, and it's not. We haven't talked in terms of whether it brings in net revenues, and I'm guessing it doesn't. But I'm looking to staff to see. Feel
Madam
free to
Chair,
contradict me.
Committee members, I would not have those. That would be a finance question to give you the proper answer for that, and I'm not prepared to give that to you tonight. However, I am prepared to talk about the 5,000 go-to cards for the coaches and how they're handling the NCAA, the VIPs, and their employees. They're doing a post-billing, so they're getting a card that will track the rides, and so the tendency or the opportunity for them to maybe ride without a fare is less because they'll be post-billed after the event to the NCAA itself from Metro Transit. And that's something that our fare division has worked out in partnership with the NCAA for this opportunity.
Councilmember Dorfman.
Thanks. So the perimeter, is it a secure perimeter the same way even though it's a smaller footprint, is it a secure perimeter the same way that Super Bowl was?
Madam Chair and committee members, yes, that it's very similar with your access points, but it is a smaller perimeter. So it rides right alongside of 6th Street on the curb to 11th Avenue to the east, and then it loops around the stadium, comes around 4th Street. It does encompass 4th Street, a good portion of it, so we will be on detour off of 4th Street at approximately April 1st, and then it comes around to Park and 5th and then loops back around onto 6th Street. So it's a much smaller footprint, and that begins building out April 1st.
So you should look, I'm not sure I followed entirely,
I apologize.
no, it's not, whether First Covenant Shelter is within that perimeter or not. It's right across from US Bank Stadium.
So, Madam Chair, committee members, so that First Covenant I am familiar with, and that is outside the perimeter.
It is?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yes.
good, okay.
Any other questions for the presenters? No, thank you very much.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that is our last agenda item for the evening. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?